Hello everyone. You might be wondering, what on earth is this person up to? For a long while now, I've been making some courses that happen to be Ninja Warrior related. Because I'm a big fan of the show, I really want to make these obstacles on the Fall Guys creative mode. So this is me attempting to do all the courses that I've made for this particular series, and I was thinking of showing this to everyone here on my channel, so you can possibly attempt all these yourself to see if you have any luck of getting past all of these. And believe me, when I did these maps for this video, I was heated at parts where I felt like, what's even the point of me doing this? I already showcased the last obstacle that was on this map, so I think I'm good. I don't have to beat that one now. We have 13 maps that I'll be talking about. I got past the 3 with pretty much a breeze. This one's one of the more tougher maps out of the 13. The first obstacle is pretty straightforward. Jump from block to block. What helps the second obstacle is you need to do a delay jump once you land on the bouncer, and you just have to time your 8 jumps to get up the ramp, aka the warped wall. And this one's supposed to be the obvious one that people who don't know the show, I should have it legally protected and claim as my own. Which is pretty awesome that people think that, yeah, I came up with the idea. The consistent thing on these maps would be that final obstacle, but there's different variations of it. So for the people that never seen that series, they probably think that that is a very unique thing that I have on my maps. So for people that are not aware, they probably are going to find that a cool thing about this series, if they never knew what these maps were based upon. So the second obstacle, if you couldn't tell because it's kind of hard to tell, to jump down and dive perfectly underneath so you can go in that little gap. It's a specific timing. You have to dive at the right time in order to go in that certain narrow space. This one is all about just staying in the middle of the log. If you go off the sides, you're gonna fall down. What makes it hard is its steepness and the fact that it's a very long obstacle. So if you mess up once, you're going to cost time on the map. The first couple maps I did, they were only a couple minutes long, because when I made these maps originally, you had the 4-minute timer that was only available, but now you have extended times, which is good, but it can also be bad because creative maps, if you were to put them in a streamer's lobby, they're very likely going to ask you, how long is this map after a while, especially if it's a tedious map without even being a parkour map. So this is the second version of the hardest obstacle known to being, in Ninja Warrior case, the cliffhanger. So yes, this is the second version. The first version, all the ledges are pretty much the same from distance and all that. Now here, this is the timing thing. You gotta wait in the right time where you want to get in the ramp, and you also want to make sure the fans push you forward so you can reach the other side while also not overshooting it. So I did it perfectly right there. This one is basically type of annoying obstacle. It's great if you could do it the first try, but when you don't, it gets very tedious. So I definitely suggest try to counterbalance them so you can walk on them better. So here you just gotta jump and land around the center space Try not to land on the edges, otherwise you'll probably be pushed off. Turning your camera also helps while making the jumps. I like it because you have multiple ways of doing it. You can go on the outer edges. You can do one single side instead of me doing opposite side constantly. So this one's a bit tougher because you have 3 different heights of the obstacle. You have one that's a little bit higher when you're making the jump, and you have one that drops down. There I kind of just went for that last ledge because you're dropping down and you are also jumping. You might even just drop down, which can be hard. You want to get as less height as possible. It might be possible to do both ways, and you might be wondering, is it possible to stick the landing without doing exactly what I did? And yes, it is possible. Now this obstacle in particular was one of my more creative ones, where you had to jump on a block around the center, traverse immediately onto the next box, and if you stay on them too long, you're going to fall off the box. This is basically a staircase kind of obstacle. It has a cool design. I do like what I did here. It's not hard, even though it looks like it can be hard. What makes it hard is literally the last part where you have to drop down and go in that little gap right there. I didn't even do it the first try. So the first obstacle that we seen on the first map was based off the 12 timbers. The trampoline obstacle, which was the second one, and the first map was the jump hand kai. The third obstacle was the warped wall, and all of the other last obstacles were the cliffhanger. You had the hurdle jump, aka the wall jump of the first obstacle of the second map. You had the reverse fly because of that transition. Supposed to be like the rope reverse, but I honestly didn't think I had it very similar to that one. The log slope, the first obstacle of the third map, was based off the downhill jump. Try to make it like a skateboard type of obstacle. The walking ones were based off the bridge of blades. The third obstacle of the third map was based off the globe grasper. I could have made the bottom platform actual globes so it actually fits the name, but I think the design I added was too good not to include. I personally enjoyed what I did with the obstacle to just keep it that way. And then you had the balance bridge, followed by the middle spin, and then the devil steps, and the final one for the fourth map was the Shen cliffhanger. The first ledge is pretty normal, the second ledge has it angled up, the third ledge has a big drop. Now my suggestion would be to not jump from the second to third ledge from the tippy top, because you're likely going to fall down. But like you've seen right there, I'm able to land on the third ledge. Map names are literally just based off the obstacles, and I decide, you know what, let's put all the names of the obstacles into one. So that's where the bizarre names come from, if you are not aware. Cone jump, followed by the jumping bars. After a while, I decided to add a checkpoint between the jumping bars and swing circle, which is basically 4 rings that you had to swing on. Even though there wasn't any moving obstacles really when it came to these, I just wanted to include the obstacles that I wanted to include in my own way, even if they were so close to the show or not. So the strategy here was to kind of just make like little dives. It's hard to explain exactly what I was doing while doing this run, but that one I was just a little lucky on when I made those 2 dives. Sometimes you gotta improvise. Now this one is the ultimate cliffhanger. This one's incredibly hard. Easily the most hardest one out of all of them that we've seen so far. Not the one that I personally think I would rage or give up the easiest out of all of the ones I've had though. So the first 2 ledges are very interesting, and we're likely going to see them again because I failed this one so many times. So you have it angled where you have to go around, otherwise you're just going to run straight into the space right there. So it's like going around the corner, then you got to make the jump to get up to the second ledge, then you got to jump where you're able to land on the third ledge. Now, what makes the third ledge and fourth ledge transition pretty hard, you expect the transition to be not as hard as the fourth and fifth transition. It's because that ledge is high, but it's not high enough where you can easily land on it. What I'm trying to say is, when the ledge is high enough where it catches the height of your jump, it's like an easy way of landing on it. But the impact while you're jumping down is a lot more effective on this transition right here. And that's why this obstacle is surprisingly difficult, even if you get past the transitions that I kind of gave away on how to get past them. You go on, you get the familiarity of these obstacles as they have a similar kind of movement to them, with different type of jumps though. I finally got past that cliffhanger. Just trying to mimic what I did. Sometimes you gotta angle the camera and try to jump in specific ways in order to catch the ledges, because they are not easy to land. This is based off the mountain climbing obstacle. This is just a time waster obstacle. It's not easy to fail. There's no real way of failing it unless you go off the sides, which is pretty hard to do if you are in control. Here I added 2 obstacles into one. You could go in the middle, which was gain the momentum while being in the ball form, and you get a boost like that. And there was another one, if you grab the ball, a basketball to be exact, you guide it in the gap, you would be able to slide down. The problem was sometimes the ball might get stuck because the character might let go of it even though you were holding on to it, which is an unfortunate thing that happens sometimes. So that's why the middle track is included here. Yeah, but that was the idea, making a chain reaction type of obstacle where you slide the ball down one track and then go on to the other one. And there was no way you could cheat the obstacle that some people have tried before. Anyways, this is the fishbone obstacle. This one's hard to do just because update that they had where you jump higher personally ruined some of these obstacles for me. The way they were first intended were a lot easier, but jumping higher kind of makes landing on these stones really hard to land. Anyways, I got past it. What I do is just do a good angle that I'm able to see the propellers move and just understand the timings like you see in the video. Now here's the 6th version of the hardest obstacle known to being, which is the crazy cliffhanger. This transition right here is pretty crazy and I didn't get past the first try. What makes this version one of my more favorite ones of the cliffhanger obstacle in Fall Guys is the fact that it's a shorter version of the cliffhanger from the previous one, and it's just the right amount of difficult where it's difficult but not quite. All these ledges are pretty much understandable, as well as that jump. It's possible to make it where you can dive and you don't have to worry about coming up short rather than just laying the ledge. Now this is the hang climbing obstacle. This one's pretty tough. You have multiple ways of going at it. All of them are possible. Some are extremely more easier than the other ones, but not a freebie, I would say. This one example is a freebie, or my personal way of doing it, as I find that one a lot easier compared to all the other ones. I think adding this section was honestly needed. If you've seen the hang climbing / spider flip obstacle, there's no breaking point or pause section, so that's why this obstacle doesn't have a checkpoint until you beat this obstacle, which is the spire flip. There's multiple ways you could do it. The way I did right there was pretty much the way it was supposed to be intended. And there's probably other ways you could do it that I'm okay with you doing it, to be honest. This one's just about having good momentum and just jumping at the right times. That one was just pretty much a time waster obstacle. That one's the climbing bars obstacle, I believe. Now here is the ultra crazy cliffhanger. It's a longer extended version of the other obstacle that you've seen. Now I was not realizing how to do it because it's been pretty long since I made these obstacles. If I didn't make these obstacles, I probably would spend more time on these obstacles. No one that hasn't done this already would be able to get them very quickly like I did. I didn't know what to do on this transition. I didn't know if you need to not dive from that transition onto the other ledge. I didn't know if you had to go far and dive. In order to dive and make jumps like that, when it comes to these ledge obstacles, I would have to kind of back it up. I would have to not go forward that much and then dive. That way you don't get pushed off by the wall. Now there I realized that in order to get past this obstacle, you don't need to dive from this ledge to the other ledge. Once I figured that out, then the obstacle was much easier. So these two ledges are the hardest ones. Now here's the second hardest ledge. This one's all about timing. I like that one. That's one of my more favorite versions of the cliffhanger. It's not too difficult, but it can. The last one does take skill and timing for sure. Now here we have the doorknob grasper. You basically have to just jump over the, what you would call them, doorknobs. Here you have the spinning bridge. I think this was a very good attempt on my part of making an obstacle. This one didn't turn out as exactly how I wanted it to be, but it works nonetheless. You just have to turn into a ball while also dive at the same time. Basically jump, then dive, and then during that dive section, then turn into a ball. I wanted you to go down the tube as quick as you can. Didn't get out the tube quick enough, you would be pushed off the tube, but then you would have to do it again. That's what I personally wanted from the obstacle. Unfortunately, that's not how it went, but after that I gave up on trying to make the correct version of the obstacle, so I just came up with that. I honestly think having that tedious obstacle in here is warranted, because this one coming up shows me that there's no reason to have a more difficult third obstacle, and this dangerous obstacle is already in here. This will be called Ultra Dimension Cliffhanger or something like that. That's like one of the more latest versions of the cliffhanger. I personally could not beat this obstacle, even though I've practiced on this before. I just could not beat it. I wanted to. The problem though was this obstacle is just so hard for me. Every time I try to do it, I feel like I have no possibility, and I know that jump's possible because I tested it out and everything. Other people managed to beat the obstacle too, that were able to attempt it. However, I always want to give up while doing that jump. That one jump is the only thing I can't do consistently or ever when it comes to any of my maps. So the first ledge is only difficult when you're making the transition because you're jumping high enough where you could fall off from the regular platform onto the first ledge. That one's about jumping and then using that momentum from the jump to swing onto the other ledge, which is a moving ledge. And in order to get past that ledge that moves, you have to jump late and dive late. Then you just gotta walk around the corners of the wall, and I suggest you jump only twice on this obstacle. If you jump more than 3 times on the bouncy section, you are going to fall off. So if you just mimic the exact jumps, you're going to land it pretty much consistently onto that little platform right there. And use the platform to land on this ledge consistently, and you'll pretty much have a guarantee free landing right here. Now what makes this transition super difficult for myself, look, I could do it right here. The dive timings are different from this ledge right here. This one you could just hold forward and then dive late. The other one you really can't. What I mean to say is you probably can, but it's not as free as this one. Or the other ledge, I feel if you hold forward too much, you're just gonna slide off. So yes, this is the 8th map out of the 13, and this was the only one I gave up on completing all the way. I felt like I could have done that last ledge because I've done it before, but on a specific or any given day, I'm not sure I could do it like that. And if there's a good time to make myself seem unworthy of attempting an obstacle, it would be this one in particular. I am honored to consistently fail on this ledge. So let's get on to the 9th map, and you win the day cliffhanger dimension obstacle. So this obstacle is the big boulder. There's some big boulders right next to it. You jump high up on the boulder, then you make a big jump onto the checkpoint. This obstacle is not very great in my opinion for my personal part. Also, I don't know how I didn't go on the other side. I clearly went on the checkpoint area. I like the design of it. All you do is jump on these little steps on the wall to get to the other side. I wanted to include it where you had to hug the wall more in order to make the jumps, but whatever. That obstacle was a swing ladder. You just make a bunch of jumps that are very close together. This one's the warped wall, but it's a lot higher than the other warped wall. This one's supposed to be the salmon ladder. You jump and then you move forward just a little bit and a little bit late. If you do it too early, you're gonna slide off. That's the trick with this obstacle. Now this is supposed to be the ball lift. It's pretty much a gimmick obstacle. It's a time waster, and I wouldn't stress on worrying about this obstacle too much or pushing the ball all the way till the very end. I would just do exactly what I do and jump over to the finish line. This was my best version of making the roulette cylinder obstacle. You push a ball on this track, and I have it where if the ball is stuck on the track, the fan will push the ball forward so you do not have the ball get stuck on the other side. Otherwise, you would have to restart constantly, so I found my way around that. So you have to stand on the ball, then move around and avoid the platforms. This one's about jumping on a log, going backwards, staying on the log enough where you could jump on to the other side. This one's the great wall. It's even higher than the other wall. Just time your 8 presses and then land on those bouncers right there. This is basically the double salmon layer. It's the same thing as the regular salmon layer, except you make this transition from the first layer to the second one. I'm a big Ninja Warrior fan. That's the reason why I made these obstacles and was inspired to spend a lot of time doing this project. I think I did a really good job for what was here on this game. There ain't new stuff here and there, but I'm personally satisfied with what I created with the materials they gave me. Pretty much the same concept as the regular salmon layer. So in order to make this transition, you kind of have to do exactly what I did, where you jump wait a while, and then dive. But don't hold forward as much while diving. Past that wall right there, here you have to make a trick jump where you jump behind the wall and then dive once you go low enough where you can dive underneath the wall. And then jump over this wall, you pretty much beat it. Deja-Vu. Apparently, that's one of the more recent obstacles of Sasuke, aka Ninja Warrior. There's many ways you could do this one, but I personally try to do it this way. The way I see this obstacle is you need to kind of move back and then make the transition. Here's the cross slider. What you have to do is just jump on one side and then go to the other one while it's moving. Yeah, I'm a big fan of this one, and I'm glad they have it where obstacles can move now. I wish that they have it where more obstacles and more stuff can move like this, but I'm glad they at least have it in here now. Now this one, oh my goodness, the camera's terrible here. Regardless, the obstacle is still possible, but my goodness, they could have made the camera a lot better here. You could blame me. Every map that has small sections like these have this issue. Try to have a good camera angle and then you try not to hang onto this little bar as much, and then just quickly make the transition from that one to the other one, and then repeat the process. You really have to feel it out from here. Jumping and diving to transfer onto each ledge actually does work here effectively. You might need a safe jump if you feel like you're about to fall off, because the wall, or however this section's made, can't push you off. And I finally managed to beat it. So this one's pretty straightforward. I didn't have much time to talk about anything here because I breezed through everything pretty much. All you had to do is just push the ball down the track and survive the drops. Then you would have to use the fans and try to time it where you could grab the trapeze. That was a bit of an annoying obstacle. Followed by the rolling Escargot, where you slide a ball down the track while it's angled in the way where you could only go on the side of the ball. And the other obstacle, you had to stay on the beam while the fans push you up, so it's hard to land on the beam. This obstacle is all about timing. What you have to do is just jump and dive to land on each trampoline while avoiding the rising slime. I just wait for the slime to go down and then do it, and that's pretty much the timing of it. I think it's a good way to make a basic version of this obstacle into a more harder version, just by that one element right there. And this obstacle is mostly just a gimmick obstacle. You just got to push the propellers, in this case propellers, even though they're not propellers, but in this case they are. You have to push them so you could go forward. Make sure you jump in the right times in order to make it to the other one, and then you make it onto the platform. This one's honestly really tough. You have to hug onto these things very closely in order to stick on them. You see me right there? I'm sliding down like crazy. Even though it looks like I land on there, because of how hard the obstacle is on landing, you're going to have a rough time unless you land on a higher section like that one. The second to third transition is the hardest one because it's a lot further compared to the other ones. My suggestion to consistently land on each one: do it around the edges of these obstacles. See how the corners of these obstacles are a little more thicker? You have to time it where you land on them specifically. You're likely going to have a better chance of sticking on this obstacle better. That's what I was trying to do while laying on it. It's just sometimes you're not going to have enough area to land. This is basically the other vertical limit obstacle that we've seen before, but this one is tougher because it has gaps as well as a farther finish line. So that was pretty much it. These are all my maps of my Ninja Warrior Adventure series. If you want to try all these maps, I will have all the map codes out there in the link description below. Anyways, take care.